I'm Donna Montgomery here with one of my colleagues, Tiffany Mitchell, and we are going to be talking today about volunteerism and the importance of that. So Tiffany is such a great example. I really appreciate you, Tiffany, being willing to be interviewed. I work with Tiffany on the NTONL board, and we got to know each other a little bit, and I've learned a lot of really cool things about her. So I want to share that with everyone who is interested in listening to us today. So first I want to introduce you to Tiffany. So Tiffany has actually been a nurse for quite a little bit of time, and she'll tell you about that. But her work on the NTONL board, the NTONL community, she's been a member of that for about 9 years, right, Tiffany? Right. And she was recently appointed to the board or voted onto the board, and she's been working with the board now for 2 years. So she definitely has been a volunteer in both of those capacities. We're going to talk about that a little bit more, but before we do that, I want you to learn a little bit more about Tiffany. So Tiffany, can you tell us, besides being a volunteer and getting your DNP at UTA, can you tell us a little bit about your background and a little bit about yourself?
Of course. So hi, everyone. My name is Tiffany, as Donna said. I graduated from nursing school in December 2009. So I've been a nurse about 13, 14 years now. My role into leadership came maybe 2014. I was approached by my manager to become a night shift supervisor. At that time, it wasn't something I was looking to really get into. I had enjoyed being a clinical nurse. Cardiac telemetry, surgical telemetry was my background. So I did that for a couple of years. But she got me involved into all of these little different things that really kind of piqued my interest. And I was realizing helped me grow not only as a nurse, but as a person. And so after I finished my BSN from UTA online, when the MSN time came for me to make that decision, I had to commit. And so, you have to pick a track. So I just went ahead and I picked the leadership track. So I went that way. Over the years, I've kind of moved from supervisor into the nurse manager role, clinically, mainly cardiac, and then I positioned myself into peri-anesthesia nursing. So that was my most recent role. I really enjoyed being a leader. I feel like it's something that all nurses have inside of them. It's just something that maybe you need to kind of tap into to bring it to life.
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Tiffany. So with all of that, in addition, what I've learned about you, Tiffany, is that not only have you volunteered for the NTONL board, but you've also volunteered in other settings. And I'd really like to talk today about volunteerism and how that is a part of you growing as not only as a professional, but also as a person. I'd really like to hear about that today.
So I will say, Texas is the third state I've worked in as a nurse. And when I moved here, and I started with my last organization, volunteering was something they kind of always done. At least once a year, once every 2 years, there were always things you can go in. They used to call it community time off. And I had never really done it on a regular basis, but as I started to do it, especially through in a clinical capacity, it was something that I was really interested in, going to do blood pressure checks in communities of underserved people who couldn't get their primary care access, or going to do stroke education for communities who are greater at risk. And it's something that just kind of touched your heart, and you realize actually people need it. So you really are fulfilling a need, not only for you as a professional, but for all of society, and just kind of to better the health of the communities that we live in. As I've grown into that, of course, when I became a leader, that's something that I just kind of transpired into my leaders and my leadership, making sure we kind of do group things together. I did for our leadership group, our peri-op leadership group, we've done Mission Arlington. I love Mission Arlington. The first time I went there to work in their food pantry, I was just so impressed about all of the work they do and all of the services they supplied. And again, there are really people who have this need. And so it just really warms your heart that you're able to give back and be someone in their lives that they can depend on for when they need things. On the professional side, I also volunteer with AONL. For the past 2 years, I was on their membership committee. We've done a lot of work around the Young Professional Voices, which is people you submit and you kind of go through like a fellowship program. We also throw on the first time attendee reception at the AONL conference, which is always really fun, and just kind of see what we can do to get new members in. What else have I done recently? Giving back. I was a DFW Great 100 nurse in 2022. So in 2023, I made sure when there was a call for volunteers to kind of go through the applications, I volunteered to do that as well. And like you said, currently I'm with NTONL, and I kind of love the energy that we got going on right now. I kind of feel like things are gonna explode in the next couple of weeks.
Good. Yeah, me too, Tiffany. I agree with you. So you've done a lot of volunteering.
Mhm.
What would you tell new nurses or up and coming leaders? And I really want you to talk about, we have two tracks in nursing, right? We have a practice track, which is leaders that are at the bedside that make sure that patient care is done as what the patients need and from an evidence-based perspective. And then we have leadership, who really is a different track. They may oversee some of those functions, have responsibilities and accountabilities for those units, but they really have other responsibilities and leadership that they have. So could you talk about what you feel like you've learned through all of your volunteering, and what would you tell new nurses might be some opportunities or things that they would want to think about that maybe they haven't really thought about yet?
So from my perspective, especially on the clinical end, all nurses are leaders. You're over your patient load, you're over what kind of goes on at your entity. You're in these unit-based councils, performance improvement. Clinical nurses drive a lot of what goes on. As a formal leader, it's by role. Again, like Donna said, I'm facilitating things happening on the back end, but really it comes from that lead and that push from that clinical group on the front end. So I would push for all nurses, even if you're a clinical staff nurse, to look for something to get into, even if it's simple as you're an oncology nurse, to join your local oncology chapter. Almost all of these organizations have chapters at the local, state, and national level. You can be a board position, or you can just be a member and show up, get education, see what's needed for your practice, see how it can improve. Because that's really how we change nursing, right? It's like we go to these evidence-based things. Sometimes we get them through different venues, but being on a board or a member of a chapter is where you can get a lot of that information from to then bring back to the bedside and make that push. And when you do that, you're being a leader, even though you're not technically a leader by role designation.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's great advice. I think we have a push I know in Texas, but definitely in the United States, for how can we continue to recruit and motivate people to go into nursing. And I think some of these things you're talking about, which helps people who are considering being nurses to consider this way that they can fuel their passion, not only by taking care of patients, but taking care of a whole community by their volunteerism. So thank you for telling us about that, Tiffany. I think that's great. And I think the other thing it leads to that Tiffany and I have talked about before is there was a call for nurses to serve on boards. And I think one of the things that was the Nurses on Board Coalition.
Right.
And they called for 10,000 nurses across the United States to be named to board positions and to function, because nurses bring different perspectives to the issues that boards work on and that they discuss. And one of the things that we've talked about today is some of the different boards that Tiffany has served on. And one thing that I want to just remind those that might be listening is you might be serving on a board. Make sure that you tell that you're reporting to the Nurses on Board Coalition, because we are trying to see how many nurses do we actually have every year that are influencing all kinds of things in the community, all kinds of things on school boards, all kinds of decisions that are being made from a policy perspective. Those are all really important things for us to be able to influence and to help those that we work with on those boards understand the issues at a different level. So Tiffany, anything else that you'd like to talk about or maybe make a call to anybody that might be listening today about volunteerism?
Well, two things. I do kind of want to say, with the nurses on board, on call, just kind of how when you think about your clinical life in the community and how it all ties together. I recently did a assignment for my DNP program. I'm in policy right now, and we were to pick one of the disparities in the community, and I picked breast cancer. And I really went down a rabbit hole with all of the information and looking at so much things. And after I did this presentation, all I could ask myself is, what do I need to join, or what do I need to get on to help influence policy to make sure we have the screenings that we need for people in these communities that are out in rural areas that don't have access to providers. There are just so many things that we can do, and nurses, we're so big in numbers. I think we have no idea how much of an impact we can make if at least one nurse did one thing in their career, just volunteer to be on one thing. I mean, it could be your kids' school board association, it could be your local government community, a local nonprofit. There are so many boards you can be on, the American Heart Association, Susan G. Komen, all these things, these people have boards, they're always looking for volunteers. And the Nurses on Board Coalition, I believe their website is NOBC.org. They actually have a list, no matter where you are in the country, of boards that are looking for volunteers, so nurses can sign up from there. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Tiffany, for your time today and your commitment to talking about volunteerism and all the great work that you've done in your career, as well as what you've done on the NTONL board. And I look forward to us continuing to work together.
Thank you, Donna.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.